You want to be a cave diver? Are you sure? Because if you are, then I might have the right cave diving instructor for you. In part 2 of our Florida video, we escape the booths of DEMA. We pack up the truck and we drive up to North Florida cave country to meet, dive, and learn from my buddy and cave diving instructor, Joerg, the Beast Hess. I take 3 days to do my Liberty CCR Sidemount crossover course. I get to dive some amazing new caves that I had never dove before, and I'm also convinced to take another course that, quite honestly, kicked my ass. All that coming up next. Let's do it.
4:34 a.m. Thursday, November 13th. It's early, and I don't got coffee. But today, we head up to Gainesville to the Liberty Divesoft Center for our first day of Liberty Sidemount crossover training on the CCR. Let's do it. Got about a 2.5 hour drive, and you know we have to find coffee. Stay tuned. We're on the way to Liberty Divesoft headquarters, and we found coffee. And it's French vanilla. On another note, I can really appreciate the service center design on the Florida Turnpike. It's one service center that supports both sides of the highway. It's a great design. We made it to Gainesville. What the hell is Gainesville? Made it to Gainesville. We're at the Divesoft headquarters, but they don't open until 8:30. Got here a little early, had a little power nap inside the truck, and now we get our learning sessions on. Let's do it. Oh, we made it to Gainesville. We got a full day of class for Sidemount Liberty. I open my truck and I find this message. Take a look. That's pretty funny. Thanks, bud.
8:30 in the morning, the door opens up, and I see two smiling faces, Mr. Travis and Mr. Joerg. And for those that don't know, Travis is essentially Divesoft US, at least from a technical perspective. If there's something on your Liberty that needs fixing, Travis can fix it. If there's something on your Liberty that needs designing, Travis can probably design it. Customer service, top notch. Always happy. Always willing to talk and give you a helping hand. Travis, it was a pleasure catching up. And then we had Mr. Joerg, who I could tell was ready for a full day of classroom Liberty Sidemount CCR training. First up, we hit the bench and we went through a complete thorough walkthrough of how to build my back mount CCR and turn it into a side mount CCR using the conversion kit. We went back and forth, reviewed a bunch of things, got it to the point where I was decent, but not great. And then we took a break, and then it was classroom time. Classroom time with Joerg Hess is an experience. I mean, if you want to talk about someone who has so much knowledge in so many different areas, Joerg is your guy. We covered everything: decompression, gradient factors, metabolism, scrubber and CO2 absorption, and how breathing cadence and environment conditions might affect that. We took an O2 sensor and ripped it apart. He even had one that was kind of cut open down the middle so that we could see all of the differences and how it worked internally. It was a full day of CCR theory, and not only that, but just dive theory in general. By the end of the day, honestly, I was pretty tired, but it was a great day, and Joerg, I got to tell you, that was pretty impressive. Now it was time to pack up the truck because I literally had all over the parking lot. It was already nighttime, and now I had to take an hour drive and hit the dive outpost to get ready for a busy dive day tomorrow.
All right, Friday, November 15th, and it's finally dive day. But first, I need coffee. I made it to the dive outpost. Yesterday had an awesome day with Joerg, the Beast Hess at Liberty headquarters. Joerg is a wealth of knowledge. Anyone looking for a real instructor that's going to take his time and explain a ton of things to you, Joerg is your guy. But today, I gotta get ready to dive. So let's make this coffee. Was looking around for a coffee cup, and this was pretty cool. Check it out. I see a 613 dive cup hiding in there. Dive day starts now.
Well, we made it to the dive outpost, which is one of my favorite places to stay. So shout out to Kate and Adam. I know the first time I stayed there was back in 2022 when I was doing a cavern course with somebody named Paul Heinerth. I've always stayed at the dive outpost since then, and I've always enjoyed my stay. It is certainly a cottage-based sort of experience where you're kind of renting your own little tiny cottage, and then you have like a little bit of a clubhouse with shared kitchen space. But honestly, I love the dive outpost, and I would have it no other way. Even better at the dive outpost, they are a full-service dive shop. Their fill station is about as good as it gets, and I'll post a few pictures. Also on site, full dive shot experience. In case you need anything, they probably have it. If they don't, they can order it and get it pretty quickly. And the best part about the dive outpost is they are literally right down the road from a magical place called Peacock Springs. Now, Peacock Springs, for me, really holds a pretty cool spot in terms of my diving experience because in 2022, I had read about Peacock Springs. I had no idea exactly what I was about to get in. And after doing a cavern course in Orange Grove and then doing a little bit of cavern time in Peacock 1, I was like, wow, this place is pretty cool. So the beauty of the dive outpost is, you can literally go to Peacock Springs, dive all day, come on back, get your tank fills, and do it all over again the next morning. Last but not least, and I got to shout it out, is the Louisville Country Store. Now, I'm going to tell you from the outside, it's not that impressive. And even on the inside, it probably could use a little bit of an update. But the staff are awesome. The breakfast sandwiches are awesome. The coffee is okay. But the best part is, if you're lucky, you might get to meet a couple of the old-timer local farmers, and some of the conversations you might get pulled into is going to be pretty interesting and comical. I have had a ton of great experiences sitting there, enjoying a sandwich, enjoying a coffee, and talking to some of the local farmers. It's just a really cool memory for me. But all that to say, it's time to head on back to the dive outpost, unpack the truck, get it all set up, get ready for a week of diving with Joerg the Beast Hess. And now we get ready for a dive at Peacock 2, which is the open water area, so that I can start to get comfortable on the Liberty CCR Sidemount. Finally, dive day is here. We jump in the trucks, we head on down to Peacock Springs, down the dirt road. At the little sign-in station, we sign in as divers, and we stuff the $5 in the little blue envelope, and we stuff it in the slot. The slot, by the way, drives me nuts. But anyway, we head on down to P2, and we start to get ready. Probably about halfway through my setup, I'm just in the middle of getting my dry suit on. A truck pulls up, a gentleman comes out, and he says, "Hey, is anyone here named Dave?" And I said, "Well, that would be me." And he goes, "I found this on the top of the sign-in box." And so this was my money clip. And it had a bunch of US dollars clipped to it and all of my credit cards and all of my ID. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to say that dive community down in North Florida is very solid. And Josh Dillerman, if this video happens to find you, I just wanted to say thank you once again and much respect. Day one of the Sidemount course consisted of 2 dives. Dive 1 was going to be in the open water portion of P2, where we kind of used it to sort of fine tune and get the setup tuned in. And then dive 2 was going to be some sort of cave dive, either in P3 or P1. Once we got in the water in P2, and P2 is a beautiful little sort of open area spot there, it did not take me long to understand buoyancy on the side mount setup. I had already spent a lot of time over the last 3 years on my Liberty back mount CCR, so understanding buoyancy and being comfortable diving a CCR was kind of already there. I had also taken the opportunity to dive side mount open circuit over the last 2 seasons, and so again, diving side mount didn't really feel that foreign. So after about 45 minutes of going through all the basic drills, we felt we were probably ready to head on to dive 2.
Saturday, November 15th. Overall thoughts yesterday on the dives. We had a quick open water sort of dive session just to go through some skills. And then we decided to go and do the Grand Traverse, which is a beautiful, beautiful dive between Peacock 1 and Orange Grove, or vice versa. We went in at Peacock 1 and 103 minutes later popped out at Orange Grove. So beautiful system. I remember that dive because it was my graduation dive on my full cave certification with Paul Heineth back a few years ago. But on the Liberty Sidemount, I can tell you it is a beautiful experience overall. And so far so good. But hey, yesterday was yesterday and today is a new day. So now we get ready for day 2 and we get to learn a new cave system. Dive day starts now. Sounds like we're heading over to Tallahassee to dive Emerald Springs. And then we've got a fish dinner this afternoon or this evening. I've got coffee, of course, and still rocking that NSS CDS mug. And now I've actually got to go back over to the dive shack and start to build out my Liberty CCR side mount kit. Got a little bit of work to do there. I am certainly not as proficient as building the side mount as I am my back mount, of course, but we'll get there. Well, now we get ready for day 2, and somehow this and this need to morph back into a Liberty CCR side mount kit. Oh, and don't forget about this. That's right. You gotta do what you gotta do. We are slowly getting there. Liberty setup is complete. And now we gotta do the pre-dive check.
Emerald Sink. How do we describe the experience that I had at Emerald Sink? And I guess just 2 words. F***ing awesome. Now, I had heard about Emerald Sink. Joerg had told me previously about how awesome it really was. But, you know, as a first-time sort of cave dive that you've never done before, there's always that little bit of extra nervousness until you actually go beneath the surface. Once we did our pre-dive checks, once we did our in-water checks and we started to descend, it became obvious pretty quickly to me how awesome this dive was going to be. The cavern zone inside Emerald Sink is mind-blowingly awesome. It's just an incredible visual. We made our way down this massive tunnel to the right. I mean, overall, I think our dive was somewhere in the 2-hour mark. And we slowly made our way down these massive tunnels into what we call the Black Abyss Room. Now, the Black Abyss Room heads on down to about 208, 210 feet. And of course, we circled the entire room at the 80-foot mark, sort of following the circumference, and it was all lined. And it was really amazing to shine your tech light down and have it just get sucked into the vacuum of the black abyssness. And then as you shined it up, as you're swimming beside this massive cavernous wall, as you're making your way around the perimeter of the room at the 80-foot mark. I might be exaggerating, but it felt like it took a long time to actually dive that perimeter. It might have been 5 minutes, but overall, just an incredible experience to see that room. We followed an alternate route back, and Joerg had briefed me before the dive to say, hey, Dave, when we just get to the edge of that cavern zone, but before you go into it, pin yourself to the ceiling so that you can sit there and just take in the amazing visual that you're going to see. And so by the time we got back to the edge, our timing was perfect because it was high noon. The sunbeams were just filling up that cavern zone, and you could just sit there on the ceiling and look and see the amount of scale in terms of that cavern zone. And honestly, visually, it was just something that I had never seen before. You could see a tree on the far side of the cavern zone, and at the 20-foot mark, we had hung our O2 bottle, and it looked so tiny because it was such a massive cavern. I just sat there for a few minutes, and I was like, I don't really know what I'm looking at, but it looks freaking cool. And I know for sure any GoPro or camera I might have taken with me, which I did not, would never been able to have captured what I saw. We made our way down to the bottom of the cavern. We had a few more drills to do for the course. One of them was a drill that I had actually never done before, which was purposely flood my CCR loop. We were basically done with scrubber time, and we were going to dump it at the end of the dive anyway. So this was a good opportunity to flood the loop and then see the effect on the scrubber. Once we did that, of course, we ascended up on bailout, took our time on the ascent, did our safety stops. I always like to take a few extra minutes at the 10-foot mark as well. And then we just kind of hung out at the surface for 10 or 15 minutes, kind of chilling out. And I was just kind of in amazement. But for me, even though I'm a newbie cave diver and I've only done a small set of cave dives, maybe I've got 40 or 50 under my belt now, that was the best cave dive experience that I have had yet to date. Oh, wait, you think this dive day was over? Oh, no. We had an incredible fish fry plan, hanging out with Joerg and his two buddies, Mike and Dave, and on the menu was hogfish, my favorite fish from way back in the Freeport, Bahama days. I'm talking hospitality to the max, North Florida, Tallahassee style. What a great evening, great folks, great hospitality, had a ton of fun talking stories. Then I had to drive home for about an hour to the dive outpost. And let me tell you, I was pretty tired. I hit the bed pretty quickly and fell asleep even quicker. Because tomorrow, we had to break it all down, build it all up, and get it ready for another dive day.
Good morning. November 16th. It's Sunday. It's 6 a.m. and the day is starting. Yesterday, our Liberty CCR Sidemount crossover course has come to an end. And it's been an incredible experience with Joerg, the Beast Hess. Coffee is being made. My day starts. And now I think it sounds like we're going to do something a little bit more on the tighter side of things in terms of side mount. So that's going to push my skills a bit. And dive day starts now.
What is going on here? We got John Coltrane in the background. Looks like we're doing a little bit of a tank fill, getting ready for today's dive.
I know what you're thinking. Why would I need a hairdryer? And it's because yesterday, part of the course, we ended up flooding our scrubber at the end. And now I'm trying to clean out and dry my scrubber basket. So I had to run to the dollar store, which there's like 8 million of those dollar stores in Florida, to use it to dry out my scrubber basket.
Scrubber packing is complete.
Okay, when your name is Joerg the Beast Hess, you don't care where you do scrubber. It could be the middle of the road. It could be the jungle. It doesn't really matter. Let's take a look.
Okay, Joerg the Beast Hess, what do we got going on right now?
I really hate the dust from the sorb, so
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get it all out before it goes in the scrubber.
But where's the workbench? There's, like, the lawn is the workbench?
That's all there is.
See, when you're the beast, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter, does it? Like, we are literally filling up sorb on the lawn
Well,
at the dive outpost.
I'm just taking care of the fire ants. That's all I'm doing.
It's incredible. This would really flip my OCD upside down.
Why?
I don't know. Like, you know, filling the sorb on the lawn. It's a new one. But like I said, when you're the beast, it don't matter.
So the funny story is that, you know, if you have in the middle of the forest, if you got leaves and all that, that's carbon and creates some acidity. So it actually neutralizes.
I love it.
So
I love it. Dive day starts now.
pretty soon.
Let's talk about my Cow Springs experience. And two words come to mind once again. Restriction. That's what I got to say about that. Now, Cow Springs, I had heard about it a few years back, and it was kind of recommended to me back in the day to say, hey, Dave, it's probably not something you're ready for at the moment, but something you could certainly work yourself up to. And that was advice that I was like, you know what? Great advice. I'll put it in the back pocket, and one day maybe I can visit it. Well, that day was now here. The good news is it was very close to the dive outpost, not far of a drive. And so if you're a member of NSS CDS, then you actually get access to the gate, and then you get access to the cave entrance. So we get on into the site, we do a little bit of a walkthrough. Shout out to the folks who have built the walkway and the steps down to the cave. I can't even imagine trying to access that without all that stuff there. So I could imagine back in the day, it must have been a real pain. But all that's in place. We do a quick dive plan briefing, and then we start to get our gear ready. Part of our briefing was, Dave, there's a downstream and an upstream section. We're planning to do the upstream section because there's a little bit more depth and we should get a bit more time. But he did warn me that there was kind of like this double restriction to get actually in at the entrance right away. And I was like, oh, here we go. I hear the word restriction. I want to give a little bit of the context to my experience when it comes to the word restriction. Number one, I had seen a restriction at the end of the peanut tunnel in P1. They call it the peanut restriction. I did it. I didn't find it too bad. The only other tight space that I've kind of really been in, and I remember it as being super tight, and maybe it isn't, was we did the crypt. So the side tunnel, Nicholson Tunnel off Olson in P1, and that was with Paul Heinerth and Joerg Hess. And I was in front, and I remember that 10 or 20 feet left to get into the crypt for me felt very, very tight. A quick crypt story. August 2023, I'm back down in cave country to do my Liberty CCR back mount cave crossover with Paul the Legend Heinerth and Joerg Hess. Day one, dive one, Paul says, we're going to the crypt. And I was like, Paul, I don't know where that is, but I take a look at the map and I'm like, wow, that looks pretty far away. He's like, don't worry, you'll be fine. As we're starting to get ready, I'm like, what's the crypt entrance like? Like, what is the entrance like into the crypt? And he's like, it gets a little tighter for sure, but you'll be fine on your setup. I was like, oh, okay, no worries. We make our way over to Peacock. We do all our gear checks. We get in the water. We do our in-water checks, and we descend down. And off we go to the crypt, and I'm leading. I don't know, 80, 85 minutes later, we're at the point where we're about to make the jump over to the entrance to the crypt. And so Paul, I think, is behind me. We make the jump over, and as we start to make our way to the crypt, now to me, it's starting to get pretty tight. And all that to say is, I am now stopped because I'm like, I thought Paul said this would be pretty easy. And what I'm looking at in front of me, it does not look that easy. And so I stop and I've got my light and I'm just looking. And I'm looking at the entrance to see how do I going to fit through one of these sort of grooves in the ceiling. And behind me, all I can hear is Paul Heinerth in his loop just chuckling away. Because he knew if he had told me in the beginning, before we started, that this is what was going to look like, he knew that I would be stressed out for the entire dive. So to hear him laughing behind me, I kind of cursed him a couple times in the loop, and I just found a way to get into the crypt. But that is really the extent of my experience when it comes to the word restriction. So, gear prep done, in-water checks done, we're chatting, but all in the back of my mind is, what is this restriction really going to be like? So we descend down, Joerg is running the line, and he starts to head towards what I guess is a hole. I just don't see a hole. And I'm like, oh, fuck, here we go. And then I see him sort of contort and make his way through this crack. I see the fins, and then he's gone. I was like, man, he was not joking. It's starting right away. I get closer to the hole, and I'm like, boy, I just don't think I'm going to fit through this. I see Joerg's fins below me, and then he darts, and then he's gone through what it looks like another restriction. So at this point, I'm just sizing up the first restriction. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, you know what, Dave, this might not be for you. So I take a minute or two and I go, look, let's try our best to make it through the first restriction. You know, we came here to be pushed a little bit. And so we're going to be out of our comfort zone. We already know that. And so we made the attempt. It wasn't pretty. And Steph, I'm going to tell you right now, I scraped the shit out of your Liberty Sidemount CCR. So sorry about that. But I did make it through the first restriction. And I was pretty proud of myself. I was like, all right, we did it. No, we didn't do it, because to the right of me, I now had to actually go and bend and make the second restriction. And this one to me looked even tighter. And of course, stress levels rising, CPU almost at the point where it's like, uh-oh. And so I had to take a moment and say, all right, let's just think about something that's going to calm me down and see if we have what it takes to try the next part of this restriction. The other part in the back of my mind was like, I don't even know if I could back out at this point, so we might as well give it a try. The good news is Joerg was kind of right there to kind of coach me and sort of show me which way to go, and we finally made it through the second part of that entrance restriction. I made it through the restriction, and at the very moment I realized I was through the restriction, all I could think about for the rest of the dive was making it back out through that restriction. And I had to tell him, I said, hey man, I need a minute just to sort of bring all the system levels back to normal, which he understood. Once the system levels were back, good to go, we started off on a very nice side mount dive. And yes, it was much smaller than the caves that I'm used to, but boy, immediately I could see like the colors and the striations in the rock, the water clarity and the color. It was quite beautiful. There's no doubt about it. And so we had a very nice dive heading towards what we called Not Your Fault, or Not My Fault. At that point, Joerg was going to drop off a stage, and then we were going to make it down through Not My Fault and head on down to 100 feet and continue the dive. Along the way, there was this sort of pull rope that we had to pull ourselves against the flow. I guess they call it the poor man's scooter. And then we get to Not My Fault. I see Joerg go heads down into a hole. And once again, here goes the comfort levels, because now this made I had to go head down to 100 feet. The hole, for me, was quite tight. Now the work of breathing on the counterlungs is changing. Now I've got to make sure I put a little bit more into the loop. And we make it through the hole. We're down at 100 feet. I give Joerg the signal, and off we go. But the entire time on that dive, as we're continuing down the line, all I could think about was the restriction at the beginning of the dive. And more importantly, was I going to fit out of that hole to get out of this freaking cave? And so we're at 100 feet. And listen, I'm not going to lie, maybe 3 or 4 minutes in at that point, I actually said, you know what? That's it. I'm calling the dive. Because I really needed to see is could I get out of that hole at the end? Joerg was a little bit of ways away from me, so I just sort of stayed at the line. I flashed my light kind of slowly. He turned around. He came on back because he saw me hovering at the line, and he's like, what's going on? I said, that's it, man. I'm done. CPU is maxed. And so he started chuckling, and he said, all right, lead us out. Now, I remember having to go down the Not My Fault hole, and I remember the restriction at the beginning. And I also remember Joerg telling me on the dive brief, he's like, Dave, all of these hard things that you're going to encounter on the way in are going to feel a lot easier on the way out. And I was like, I kind of brushed him off, said, yeah, no, that makes sense for sure. I didn't remember any of that shit. So we turn around, we head on up, back through Not My Fault, make it out of that okay. We pick up the stage. Now we're flowing with the flow. And so it was a nice sort of easy dive on the way out. I would love to tell you that I had lots of time to look and see how beautiful the cave was. No. All I cared about, get to that restriction and make it out. And at this point, I was like, man, I don't care if I got to get a running start at this, rip all the gear off and make it out. I'm making it to the sunshine. We finally get back to the restriction, and Joerg tells me, you go ahead. I'm going to clean up the line. We had a little bit of deco to burn off, so we got that all done. I got myself through the first restriction. It actually felt pretty easy. I got myself through the second restriction. There was a little bit of scraping, but again, a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. And essentially sat there, burned off deco, got out into the open water, stayed at 10 feet, took a few extra minutes. All that to say is it was way easier on the way out than I thought it was going to be. So the entire time of that dive, I was stressing about the exit for no real reason. And I guess that's probably pretty normal when it's a first time diving a cave like that. Because honestly, I just didn't know. Once we got to the surface, we chilled out for about 10, 15 minutes, kind of chuckling at the experience. And Joerg was like, you know, you kind of turned it exactly where I thought you were going to turn it. In my mind, I feel like I conquered a few demons that day. I certainly was stressed out about going through the double restriction in the beginning. And when I think about what I thought cave diving would feel like a few years back when I started my journey, this is the cave that I probably would have thought that cave diving looks like. And so I thought like I felt like I gained a fair bit of cave experience today. Was I great at that dive? No, of course not. Tons of stuff to learn, tons of stuff to be better at. But I'll tell you, I will remember that cave. And when I go back, that is certainly the one that I'm going to want to practice at the most. Because my feeling is if I can get good diving that cave, then that means my cave diving experience and my skills will improve. This was a great way to end my Liberty Sidemount CCR experience. Another great cave dive with Joerg the Beast Hess. Another great cave dive of learning, being humbled, and gaining cave diving experience. Now that this portion of the cave video is finally done, I wanted to take a moment at the end to shout out to a few folks. Number one, Joerg the Beast Hess. Always a pleasure diving, always a pleasure learning, and more importantly, always a pleasure hanging out. Number two, Steph Senecal, I really appreciate you allowing me to borrow your Liberty Sidemount conversion kit for this course. I still do not own a Liberty Sidemount conversion kit, but it is definitely something that I'll be buying probably this season. 3, shout out to Kate and Adam at the Dive Outpost. Always appreciate the hospitality, always enjoy my stay, and I hope you guys are doing well. And last but not least, the Klee family, Wendy, Jaden, Reese, and all the support you guys have given me on this incredible dive journey to date. That's it for now. Practice hard, dive safe.
Well, the good news is day 1 of the class, building this took me about an hour. And now after about 5 days of using it and building it, we are down to about 20-25 minutes to get this all assembled. Well, it's time to test out what's in the black case. That actually goes out to my Starlink mobile antenna, which is literally sitting on my tent box. Well, we made it through all of our dive training. Dive days are done, but that doesn't mean the fun is over. Check it out. All right, day is done. Just spent 2 hours at the gun range at Shoot GTR down here in Gainesville. It's an awesome place. The staff is super friendly, very helpful. Shot a couple handguns. Pretty much about as much fun as you can get other than diving. November 20th, 6 a.m. in the morning. It is time to pack up the dive truck and head home. That is it for Cave Country Road Trip. Now it's time to head back home and see the family. I don't know how it all fits in the Honda Ridgeline.